So we've known for a while that Phantom Liberty is essentially going to transform Cyberpunk into a version 2.0, but thanks to the new trailer entitled New Ways to Play, we now have a ton of very specific details on just what that's going to look like, with a gameplay showcase featuring combat changes, a look into all the redesigned perk trees as well as the new Relic tree, as well as a showcase of several new weapons and vehicles with some awesome unique abilities. There's a whole load of stuff to break down from this trailer and many tiny details which can easily be missed. So without further ado, let's dive right into it.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
So right off the bat, we can already see a small but important change to how we dismount vehicles, or at the very least bikes. Beforehand, if you wanted to dismount, you'd either have to gingerly step off and slow down if riding at speed, or go cascading into a barrier, in which case you'd have no control until you land. This change now though, of course, means we can dive into fights with style and fluidly transition from vehicle to pedestrian mode.
My favorite merc. Welcome to Dogtown. There's a job. Coordinates provided. You know what to do.
And now it's on to yet another much-needed expansion from the base game. Mr. Hands literally has one Pacifica gig, which I've explored in this video, so fortunately it appears we're getting more from him in this new update. He's set to play some sort of part in Phantom Liberty, so whether his gigs will be exclusively tied to that is unclear, but good to see that he's getting more. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't picked up the DLC yet and are planning to, then doing so via my link down below is a great way to support the channel at no extra cost.
Thinking of buying some iron.
The logical choice.
Now another look at the black market here, and we already got a decent walkthrough of this place a little while back. This is where we'll be able to buy a ton of uniques not available in the base game, with the canonical reasoning being that Dogtown is able to procure black market goods, given that it sits outside of any governing body's jurisdiction. And we can see at the top of the showcase here that they're all marked illegal. Order appears to be a unique variant of the Sitara, about time since we didn't have one in the base game, and it's the only tech shotgun we can get. Grit seems like something of a last stand sidearm, and kind of reminds me of the little Jomp Nerf guns which fire a single round. Not quite sure how it's going to weigh up against the others, but hey, maybe this small thing packs one hell of a punch. The Warden SMG seems interesting, and we've seen it in use more during previous gameplay footage. In fact, looking at it now, it kind of appears like it's powered by the same battery that I'd use on the drill. So who knows, maybe there'll be some sort of charge-based mechanic tied to it. New sniper rifles are always welcome, of course, given I found them one of the less rewarding gun types to spec into in the base game, with precision rifles generally being a much better choice. This one seems pretty powerful, and judging by the scope, I'd say it's either closer range than some of its counterparts, or is a smart gun, therefore rivaling the Ashura. Hercules is purely branded as special, and seems pretty heavy duty. Presumably it's going to fire somewhat explosive rounds, and feature as a closer quarters alternative to the 05 Sniper, something which definitely would be a huge welcome addition to Berserker tank style builds. And finally, Rosetsu sits alongside the Nakamata in the fact that it straight up reminds me of a railgun. With 3 rounds before reloading, it seems, this is no doubt going to be one of the most powerful single shotguns in the game, and I cannot wait to try out a sniper build with it. Additionally, we get this cool shot of a katana with a glowing red blade, something that we've seen before in showcases, and no doubt another cool unique. Now, onto Cyberware, and at first glance, this Ripperdoc looked a little like Victor. However, clearly upon closer inspection, it's someone completely different, and it makes total sense that Dogtown should bring with it at least one new Ripperdoc, if not more, peddling, by the looks of things, some unrecognized new gear as well. And in this menu, in fact, is our first look at the Cyberware limitation mechanic. It looks like we're going to have about 250 points to spend, with each piece of installed Cyberware totaling up to varying numbers. For example, a legendary bioconductor which gets added here appears to be worth 20 points. Now, obviously, this is going to mean having to plan your builds carefully, prioritizing which items are most useful over the ones which are just kind of good to have. On the right as well is another meter which looks kind of like body armor. Presumably there's a limit here since there's only so much body that you can cover in armor, and the more you're covered, the more damage you'll negate, I suppose. Now, we know already that clothing, except for actual body armor, is no longer going to affect armor stats. Therefore, the majority of heavy lifting on that front is also going to be in the Cyberware you install.
I'm ready. Get this show on the road.
And now, back to the actual combat showcase, with slamming this hammer down being everything that Berserk's superhero landing should have been. We've also got a lunge attack here, followed by V throwing what looks to be a tomahawk. Now, this is something I'm hugely happy about since tomahawks weren't actually throwable in the base game, rendering them essentially useless since you couldn't use their coolest ability. And now we get a complete look at all the redesigned perk trees. These things aren't labelled, but it's clear from looking at many of the symbols that a lot of them have just been repurposed from the base game. Though just because the artwork is the same, it does not mean the perk is going to be identical. We've already heard in interviews that the devs really wanted to move away from the incremental stat boosts, adopting a system instead that had more tangible, realised changes that you'd actually notice in combat gameplay. Also, the entire makeup of the perk tree is completely different. No longer are all perks created equal. Some of the larger ones seen no doubt grant some kind of cool ability, whereas the smaller ones next to them likely feed into somehow improving that ability specifically. For example, we've got this perk featuring Rebecca in the body section, which, just going out on a limb here and guessing, contributes somehow to our proficiency with shotguns, probably in some Berserker style fashion given that it's Rebecca and she's a little off the rails. Much of intelligence still seems tied to the crafting of quick hacks, with Bartmoss Legacy sitting proudly at the top here, though there's also plenty of other things to unlock aside from the crafting elements. As for cool, this one's kinda clear. We've got plenty of knife related perks still. Then in the middle, some abilities based to dashing or possibly sneaking around, and then on the left, some gunslinger related stuff, a type of build which definitely belongs in the cool section. Now, whether or not that means they're doing away with cold blood a bit, it remains to be seen. Now onto tech, and again, this appears a very crafting oriented tree, with most of the perks seeming to revolve around that and grenades still, and tech weapons seemingly getting their own dedicated section over here. Finally, we have reflexes, which is indeed exactly the same as the image which leaked a little while ago. In fact, this one appears at a simple glance of the image to be kinda similar to cool, with the three focuses from left to right being guns, dashing/moving, and blades. So it'll be cool to get an actual look at the perks themselves to see how these ones differ. Also, notice how in every skill tree there's a solitary perk which appears entirely related to vehicles. Clearly, some of the vehicular abilities won't be getting unlocked by default, and that fluid dismount, say, which I praised at the start of the video, may actually only be unlockable with a perk. I guess that kinda makes sense, since dismounting from a moving bike probably isn't as easy as Tom Cruise makes it look. Now, a look into some of them in action. Interesting to see we'll be getting perks specifically focused on finishes. I mean, they look cool as hell, though I'm curious to see what kind of edge that actually gives us in combat. Presumably it'll be an insta-kill, which triggers at varying percentages depending on the perk's level. Then Bullet Deflect is obviously a very exciting one, since it makes blade builds without a Sandevistan a lot more viable and appears unlockable pretty early. Then Opportunist is tied directly to the Blade Runner finisher perk and feels ripped straight out of Space Marine, seemingly making you able to grab an enemy mid-fight and finish them more quickly. Then it looks like Air Dash allows you to avoid enemy fire and move around the battlefield a lot more easily, whilst Savage Sling is going to allow you to throw bodies. Yes, we could kinda do that before, but not in a combat scenario like this. Then Pull, I guess, is a clay pigeon shooting reference, meaning we can throw and shoot a grenade in mid-air. I mean, that's something I and many others have been doing already. It's perfectly possible in the base game and not that difficult to pull off, but it's cool to see it get its own perk. Then finally, Deadeye, I guess, is going to make it easier to secure headshots with revolvers, kinda like the Deadshot Daiquiri perk in COD Zombies. And whilst I'd question the fun of perks which essentially enable some form of aimbot, it does make sense in this technological setting. And I mean, I guess if you don't feel you need something like that, then the perks can just be better spent elsewhere. Again, it's essentially going to be about what you as a player prioritize. After that, we get a look at the Relic tree, not unlocked by traditional leveling up, but instead by securing Relic points around Dogtown. I've said it before, but it's essentially the same endgame level abilities we saw from the mutagen tree in Blood and Wine. 9 abilities here, so hopefully that means 9 Relic points if we want to unlock them all. If not, it's simply again going to be a case of prioritizing. Launch capacity override may finally make the projectile launcher a viable combat weapon to use, since it was very underpowered before unless you had trank darts, in which case it was an unsatisfying insta-down. And this is going to allow us to use it by firing multiple rounds one after the other. Spatial mapping, I guess, will make the Mantis blades more powerful, whilst limiter removal boosts the potency of the monowire. Makes sense then, given the alignment of these 4 along the top, that this 4th one would somehow offer a boost to the Gorilla Arms.
Job done.
Premium work, V. I'm closing the gig and sending you a little bonus. Something that will spirit you home safely.
And then we're on to vehicles. It's already been confirmed that the entire way we acquire these is set to be fully revamped, with us now having to go through Muammar El Capitan Reyes and complete various vehicle-related jobs for him. These are said to never run out, which I guess means there's no limit anymore on just how many vehicles we can own and how they'll vary in appearance, though it's nice to see some of the new ones here. A few more civilian-based cars first and foremost, some cool limousine SUV and a sweet new Quadra, which definitely isn't a Type 66, and then there's the Barghest military Thornton, which we saw back in the second trailer, I believe. After that, it's a tiny 4x4 off-roader made by the same company who make the Maymay, so a fan favourite waiting to happen there, and now the highly anticipated spy cars. The Herrera Outlaw already looked kinda like a modern Aston Martin, and now it's actually got guns in the front. Then the Xion Coyote was already probably the best off-roader car in the game, and now we're looking at a variant of that which also houses weapons too. Of course, this is only really relevant thanks to the introduction of vehicle combat and a police system overhaul. Police and MaxTac will of course chase you now, and it's awesome to see us donutting our way out of a tough situation by spraying lead from the car. What's more, it appears we can even use other vehicles on the road to create disturbances in traffic, with hacking allowing for 3 options. Self-destruct, which notably requires a lot more RAM, as well as flooring it, or emergency braking, which are cheaper. Imagine being stuck in a car chase only to get away by just emergency braking all the police vehicles behind you. Or better still, emergency braking ourselves before forcing them to floor it whilst we turn down some side alley. Hopefully, it'll make the roads of Night City feel a lot more alive and less like the simple paths connecting us from A to B. And up next, we get full confirmation that we can actually shoot out tires now, which I guess will serve as both a benefit and a hindrance for us should we lose our own tires. MaxTac do already come after you in the base game if you're really bad, and if they do, it's practically a death sentence. Though fortunately now, it seems whilst law enforcement are going to be a lot more responsive to us, standing against them should prove a lot more doable and fun. So finally, as V drives into the distance, we get a list of actual things which are being added. Some are absolutely no surprise whatsoever, others are nice to have confirmed. Notably, I'm very happy to hear that there'll be new story quests and gigs, and I'm very much looking forward to making new videos on those. Then the endless dynamic events, while spoken about before, is a very exciting concept to have as well. Sure, they'll get repetitive eventually after a while, but will technically add limitless things to do for those who are so inclined. Redesigned cyberware and perks, obviously a given, and whilst I'm almost sad to say goodbye to the old dynamic, I'm happy to welcome in the new one, provided it serves as a marked improvement on what was replaced. Time will tell if that's the case, but it looks promising so far. And of course, with any expansion, increasing the level cap is absolutely needed. Since there's more playtime being added, it's imperative to still feel a sense of progression through all that new content. The revamped perk trees, as we've seen, are looking kinda hefty, so no doubt it's gonna take quite a while to fully spec into any of them. Finally, 100+ new items, weapons, cyberware, and fashion. Okay, this one excites me, and I can't wait to dive into all the pros and cons of different weapons and cyberware, though the fact that fashion is included in this statement too does make me wonder just how many new weapons and cyberware there'll actually be. Could be that there's like 80 new bits of clothing and just 10 of each of the other 2, so take that statement with a grain of salt before getting your hopes up. Still, I think on balance I'd rather less weapons and cyberware, which all feel carefully designed and unique in their own right, than a ton of slightly different variants which just feel forced in to get the numbers up. Provided there's something new for every build type, I think quality is probably more important than quantity there. Then, to end the trailer, a closing shot of presumably Mr. Hands, living it up somewhere which doesn't seem like Pacifica to me. Not really a problem since you never meet him there face to face, so he could operate remotely from anywhere in Night City, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and wager the palm trees out the window situate him somewhere up in Northoak. Could Mr. Hands be reinvesting his fixer money into running the Northoak casino as well? Well, I guess we'll just have to find out when Phantom Liberty drops in just over a month from now. Again, if you haven't picked it up yet, then doing so through my link helps the channel out at no extra cost, so cheers to anyone who does. I am seriously stoked to play this game now and explore all the new details that it has to offer, so make sure to subscribe for everything Phantom Liberty come September. Currently, I'm playing through the mammoth of an RPG that is Baldur's Gate 3, so expect some stuff on that soon too, as well as Starfield in a couple weeks time. And thank you as always to my amazing patrons who help to keep the channel, and me, alive and fed whilst I make content on these amazing games. Finally, thank you for watching. I'm Bram, and I'll see you soon in another video.